All right, so let me show y'all what I've been up to. This is the new and hopefully to be released soon M6IO combat drone controller. It is a basically a playable drone controller. So let's go to an enter play mode, show you what's going on. It's going to take a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So as you can see, I am moving around with WASD. I'm able to go up and go down using space and control. So all the inputs are already set up and everything out of the box. Um, and it is set up with the new input system, so you can easily remap the controls for whatever platform you want to use. And yeah, so basically, it is a drone that you can use for any games where you play as a drone or a flying asset. So it does have the ability to fire projectiles. I did not. I'm not artsy enough to come up with projectiles. I'm artsy enough to make a drone, but not to figure out how to do projectiles. So, but basically, you can either free aim. In the future updates, I'll probably be adding like UI elements like rectangles and stuff like that. Um, but for now, it's just all up to you and how you want to do it. If you want to see how things are being aimed, you can open your gizmos and you can see where the aim gizmo currently is being uh, where it's currently being projected. And then you can actually lock on to targets using the lock on control, which on PC is going to be the scroll button. And then you can release it hitting that lock button again. There you go. So, and it'll lock on to whatever has a lock on target. So you can lock on, you can fire, and so forth and so on. And all the scripts that are needed for all of what you're seeing in here, it's all included in the asset. So before we end this is going to be a short and sweet video. Before we end this, I kind of wanted to show a little tour of what's included and sort of what the setup process looks like. So let's go ahead and start from like a new scene. That's probably the best way to do this. So we'll go into scenes and we'll just say we'll create a scene and we'll call it demo for that was supposed to be YouTube, but I hit enter prematurely. We'll say demo for YouTube, like so. And then we'll open up that scene. First thing I want to do, really important, is get rid of the main camera because we have a setup script where we're going to actually set up the camera automatically. So that's also part of what's included here because there are a lot of scripts. There is a lot going on. So I wanted to make sure that I took out as much of the guesswork out of it as possible. And then for the more like tech savvy developers, you can just go in and go wild, change whatever you want, so forth and so on. So first thing I just want to do is add a little plane just so that we have a way to gauge where the ground is, and we'll just reset this, um, and we'll give it a sizing of 5. Yeah, 5 is good enough for the plane. So this is just going to represent our ground. And then we'll come over here and we will first need to add one of our prefabs. So I already set up a I already set up the tricopter that you saw earlier in the in that previous scene with everything that it needs. But I also set up prefabs that are kind of blank, so none of the scripts are attached. It's just all of the hierarchy that's needed to get a quick setup going, and this will give you an idea of what it is that you need to do for your own drone assets or flight assets, excuse me, if you want to be able to get a similar thing going on. So we will go with the hexacopter just because it kind of looks funky. There you go. So, oh, and it does come with like 4 different variants of the same copter. So they're just like the main difference between these is like the size of the arms and the count of the arms. So you get a tricopter, you get a pentacopter, quadcopter, and a really sad hexacopter. Let's move you up a little bit. Where's the yeah, there we go. There you go. For now, we'll just get rid of these. I actually don't know if they're called pentacopter and tricopter. That's just me inferring counts of rotors onto it. Now that we just have our hexacopter base, let's go ahead and set this thing up. So we're going to head into tools, M6IO, combat drone, oops, combat drone, setup drone, and we're going to need to start filling things out. So basically, what I'm going to be adding in here is exactly what you're going to need, and some of this stuff is already going to be provided to you. So first thing I want to do is add the actual the parent of the drone. So this is where our drone controller script is going to be added. we're going to want to add our propellers. So reason we want to add these are going to be uh, added to the drone controller script, and they basically are going to be, so these are going to be spinning while you're actually flying around, and the spin speed is determined based on how fast you're going. So we need to be able to target those. Go ahead and minimize that real quick. Um, and let's add our weapon system. So the weapon is going to be the prefab that we're going to be attaching our weapon system script to. The articulating object, this is the object that's actually going to be moving around. So we want the weapon system to, oh, did not mean to do that. We want this weapon system to be the actual turret to be able to like look up and down to match the direction that you're aiming. Just for aesthetic reasons. So that's why we need to define both the turn attachment, which is where the script's going to go, as well as what object is going to be articulated, or in other words, like moved around. We want to add our yaw pivot and our pitch pivot. So these are for the weapon system as well to help with how it like follows the player's aiming. Then we want to add our barrel base. So this is the base of the gun barrel. So if we click over here, you'll see that over here. I already preset these in the I already set these up for you in the prefab. But if you have your own custom prefabs and you need to do this, this is kind of what you would do. And this is just used to help line up the shot because you can't really do that with a single point. The other point is the muzzle. So this is going to be the second part of that lineup, but the muzzle is also used as the point where the prefab is instantiated. So make sure that if you're going to add a collider, like a sphere collider, you'll want to like have this be like outside of the collider, or just make sure that the collider is like a trigger collider. That way, the projectile can actually exit the collider wall, if that makes sense. So just be very cognizant of where you place this. It is where the projectile spawns, but that is obviously that comes with the headache of dealing with colliders. Anyways, moving on. So let's also add our aim point. So this is going to be a predetermined space somewhere in front of the drone. So if I zoom out, there we go. So I just kind of like put it ahead. This is variable, so this will be moving around based on like what things are intercepting it. So that like in order for you to not be like looking a million miles below you when there's like floor, it kind of like clamps how far you're looking so that your camera actually, yeah, it'll make sense once you like play around with it. There is a gizmo to kind of visualize what's happening. It's hard for me to explain it with words. So our projectile prefab. So I already created a simple projectile. It's just a sphere. It's gonna also add a projectile script to it, which is just a script that like lets you have game object pooling for performance reasons and like a short lifespan for the projectile. That way it's not like staying in the scene forever. And then let's also define add our input actions. So these are going to be, you need to add these because this is going to be plugged into the various scripts, so that way like different actions are responded to, like firing and locking on and stuff like that. So if we head to input, we're going to add our input actions to this one, to the input actions. So that's just going to give it, because I didn't want to override your default like project wide input actions. If you want to do that, you can do that, but I didn't want to take over your project. So just make sure you add the input actions that I provided, and then we'll add the lock on action right there, and then the fire action right there. Cool. So now if we hit setup drone, it's gonna go ahead and, that was fast. Just add everything that you need, plug in all your scripts. Yeah, so that's that. So let's go ahead and turn on the gizmos and you can kind of see what's going on. So this radius over here, that is kind of like the max lock on distance. So way we can change that, like basically if you exit that distance, it'll untoggle whatever it is that you have locked on. So to change that, we can go to aim point, and you can modify this to like we'll say 20 or 60, or that's way too big. We'll say 30, 20, just so you can see it. And then min distance is if you want to have like uh, clearance between you and whatever it is that you're shooting. This is just for visualization purposes, and yeah. So and then obstruction layers is just like whatever that can like block your sight. In this case, really the only thing that you should put here is like default, and whatever like whatever layers you have that represent like solid objects or things that you just want to shift the aim point, if that makes sense. So that's that. Now let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. And I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger. Make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So it's working. You'll see the projectiles are firing. And oh, I did add a script because the mouse is kind of annoying when it's all over. I did add a script that you can add if you want. I kind of made it optional in the setup script, but we'll just create an empty and we'll say uh, hide cursor on play, and that's going to do exactly what it sounds like. Hide cursor on play. So that way, when you that way when you're like flying around, your mouse is not like flying outside of your outside of your game, and you can actually like focus on what you're doing. So there you go. So no more cursor. If you want to see the cursor, just hit escape and it'll show up again. If you press on the scene again, sorry, on the game again, it'll disappear again. So there's that. Now, real quick, let me show you how to set up some targets for lock-on testing. So we will go to the prefabs. I did already set up these prefabs with a lock-on target, so we'll just add a big one there, and like a couple of there we go, a couple of small ones like that. Cool. And inside of these, you'll see that they have just a simple component called lock on target. And basically what this is this just lets you lock onto things, right? This lets the drone like know that this is something to lock onto. If the pivot of the target is not the same as what it is that you want to lock onto, so take this target for example, you'll see the pivot is like in the center, but I want to be locking onto the center of the actual the rings, right? The target rings. So that's where I'll set the anchor over here to that specific point. You can also just create a an empty game object like this. So we'll say uh oh it did not let me type that. Anyways, we'll just say anchor, right? And inside of this, we'll change that anchor to this game object, and now you'll see that so this is going to be, oh, sorry, where'd it go? Hello. There we go. So you'll see that like the actual gizmo representing the anchor is moving around, which is kind of dumb because this is what's going to be locked onto instead of this. So we'll just get rid of that, like so. But yeah, so now you kind of have an idea of how that works. So we'll just set the middle ring to that again, and then if we hit play, thinking. Okay. Now, if we look at our targets, I'm gonna hit space to go up a little bit, and I hit the lock on key. You'll see it actually locks on. Let's just toggle the gizmos so you can see what's happening. Oh, let's toggle the gizmos and make them a little bit smaller because it's hard to see. There we go. So there you go. So I'm gonna hit lock on again, locked on. I'm gonna unlock, unlocked. So I have free look. Hit lock on again. Now I have free look disabled. Oh, you saw that it automatically let go, and that's because I exited the lock on radius. So if I'm outside the lock on radius, right now I'm spamming the lock button and nothing's connecting. That's because I said that the max lock on can be 20 meters, right? So that's that blue sphere that you can't really see it right now, but you kind of saw it like earlier when I was toggling. So you can like set that to be a little bit bigger if you want, so that way you can have a further lock on radius, or further lock. Yeah, lock on radius is right. So yeah, that's basically that. Yeah, hopefully to be on the asset store soon, if not already. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you learned something today.